They say that kids say the funniest things, but in this video, I'm actually going to go a step further and I'm going to say students say the funniest things. I am going to count down the top three funniest things that I've heard from students. And I'm also going to give you one bonus that you're going to want to stick around for at the end of this video. So, in third place, this was my very first year of teaching, and I was working in a high school in South Korea. And one of the students had a comb in his hair, and he looked ridiculous. And I said to him, "What are you doing with that comb in your hair?" And without missing a beat, his friend said, "Oh, teacher, he is a homosexual," which I think is brilliant, particularly because their English was not that good. I suspected that it was better than they let on in the classes. The top two spaces are actually the same students from Hungary. The first one was I tried to bond with my teenagers and I tried to think, what is it that they would like to learn? Well, they'd like to learn to swear. Now, of course, I am not advocating dropping the F bomb in classes, teaching them strong swear words, but expressions like shits and giggles, I didn't have a pot to piss in. These are expressions that I've taught to both teenagers and adults. But one of them was used absolutely perfectly with a colleague of mine. So he was an American guy, very serious teacher. All of us went by our first names. He insisted on being called by his Mr. and his family name, Mr. Reyes. And his room had been double booked. And he was standing in the corridor with a class of students who were my students, and they had nowhere to go. And he was getting angrier and angrier that he didn't have a room to teach in. One of my students walks up to him, taps him on the shoulder, and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Reyes, would this qualify as a cock up?" Now, he came into the staff room furious and said to me, "How dare you teach these things to these kids? You're going to do this, always deny." I'd like, nothing to do with me. They must have got it from YouTube or something like that. And then proceeded, once he'd left the room, to just break down laughing. The same student and a very similar situation. I'd been off sick. I had a hernia operation when I was in Hungary, and a good friend of mine had been taking my class. As part of the program, at the end of every year, they had to make videos to demonstrate their level of English. Now, when they are first, second, third, fourth grade, that's cute. By the time they get to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, they're teenagers. They don't want to do it. They don't take it seriously. And I got a phone call from my friend again saying, "Liam, what have you been teaching these kids?" Now, I did not teach him this, but it's exactly my sense of humor and exactly, it just cracked me up. So the video was supposed to be 5 minutes. And my colleague said to a student, "Your video is only 3 minutes. It's not long enough." And apparently, deadpan, he looked back at my colleague and said, "Most women would be happy with 3 minutes." It's just is just the perfect one-liner. Now, I could make a whole 10 or 20 humorous things that students have said, but those are the three that really stick in my mind. The bonus one that I promised you, and the reason it's not in my list, is because it wasn't when I was teaching. It was when I was a play worker in Manchester. Bear in mind, at this time, this period of my life, I think I was 19, maybe 20 years old, and we were running a play scheme in an underprivileged area of Manchester. And there was one girl there who had an attitude, and we'd all had run-ins with her. But most of us had a bit of a soft spot for her because we knew she came from a difficult household, and for the most part, she was quite respectful to us. And one day, her mother stormed onto the park and started shouting at her in front of everybody. Now, if that happened now, I would step in and say, this is not the place to have this conversation. But back then, 20 years old, I was kind of shocked and taken aback. And she screamed at her daughter, "Your behavior is a disgrace." And without missing a beat, the daughter turned to her, looked her in the eye, and just said, "Your face is a disgrace." It's immature, I know, but at the time, it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. What are some of the funniest things that students have ever said to you, whether it's intentional or unintentional? I would love to know that. Drop a message into the comments below and let me know what students have said that have really made you laugh.